Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another political episode. So, not really much to go over Florida, but we are mainly going to be focusing on the emphasis of Rick Scott, based senator from Florida, ran for Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans, lost badly because our Senate is just too deranged and just too neocon, and that's why I'm saying, you know what, we need to primary all these buffoons, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, James Langford, and John Cornyn. All of them are running for re-election. I don't know if they're running for re-election, but they're up for re-election, and it's our chance to get them out and replace them with America First senators. Rick Scott is an America First senator, and he would be more preferable, although a lot of conservatives have bashed him due to the said funding to some races, but you know what? Like state races, every senator has their gray spot. I think there's no such thing as a perfect senator, and I think Rick Scott out of the bunch was 80% better. And it's very disappointing that he ended up losing, but he won his biggest victory in his whole political career, his re-election to the United States Senate, by 55.6%. This goes into the wake as Florida has become a very solid red state. Now, he didn't receive a solid victory. He was in the likely margin of victory here, but we'll see what he did. He, as you know, I thought Rick Scott for sure, he was a controversial figure because I'm always I'm concerned about the media, because the media tends to, you know how bad the media is. People believe the media. And good news, the media is dying out, and that makes me feel much better. But they painted Rick Scott to look like this pro-death penalty. Well, I mean, I'm pro-death penalty. I mean, only in uses to enforce the law. But they're making Rick Scott this pro-death penalty, where he tends to overuse it a lot. And it's true, as governor, he did sentence a lot of criminals, and you got to believe they're really bad criminals in order to be sentenced to death. You can focus on the emotion of putting a criminal to death, or you can actually be logical about it. But this is what it's looking like right now. I was also concerned about Debbie McCarcel-Powell, and mainly because she is a congresswoman. I believe she is incumbent. But looking at let's see here. Paste. Okay, my copy and paste is not working. Okay, I don't think I copied it. Let's see. Debbie McCarcel-Powell, former United States representative. She was, of course, she's Ecuadorian, and what interesting fact is, I find that very interesting, if you will. Honestly, I can care less where McCarcel-Powell comes from. She's Ecuadorian. She was the first Ecuadorian American and first South American born immigrant to serve as a member of the U.S. Congress, but you would think that would bring more Hispanic Americans. Nope. In fact, McCarcel-Powell lost all Hispanic regions. In fact, she lost Miami-Dade by a lot. I mean, Trump did better in Miami-Dade, realistically. But there's also Osceola County, which has a stronghold of Hispanics and Latinos. And to see Rick Scott winning those, it pretty much echoes that, yeah, Osceola County is a red county. It used to be a very Democrat county. In 2020, it was more liberal than, and it still is. It's a little bit more liberal than Miami-Dade, interestingly enough. And I find that very interesting, if you will. But then again, not real major city there. Yeah, Ben Average got 1 vote in this county. Lol. But yeah, 62,000 votes and you got 1. 1 from Osceola. It's just ridiculous. But yes, you see the general election results. Looks exactly like the presidential election results. I think this is a new county format. Palm Beach, I mean, I think the only reason why Ron DeSantis won Palm Beach was because so many people approved of what he was doing with keeping Florida free, keeping Florida open in regards to businesses during the wake of the COVID pandemic. There was also the hurricane, so it did take a lot for him to win Palm Beach. He didn't win it by a lot, though. But you'll see Senator Marco Rubio, he did pretty much perform the same results as Senator Scott. As you can take a look here, but he did a little bit better here. You'll see he did a little bit better. He carried Osceola much wider compared to what Scott carried Osceola by. But let's take a look at Rick Scott's electoral history, because I had doubts in this guy. I mean, I love Rick Scott, but he's kind of weak. He is a more weak candidate. Some people will say, well, he can't be that weak because he defeated Senator Nelson, Bill Nelson, a huge, renowned United States senator from Florida, and he was, of course, renowned for, of course, being the 14th administrator. Okay, he just assumed office. Point, but I think he was an astronaut. Yeah, NASA payload specialist, just like Senator Kelly. But yeah, people loved him, but the people liked Rick Scott more, and he successfully defeated Senator Nelson in a very close match. But let's take a look at the electoral history, too. In 2010, it was close. Rick Scott defeated Alex Sink by a point in 1.1% of a margin. That's what it's kind of looking like. In 2014, he defeats Charlie Crist, same margin, no real improvement, if you will. No real improvement. He's losing counties. So he's winning elections where he's winning less than 5 points. It was expectationally very close, and I would say this is his best performance because everyone was expecting Nelson to win. Let's see if there were. Oh, yeah, Nelson, it was a tight race, but Scott won that election. And then finally, they didn't add that in. Shoot. But the 2022 race was his best performance, and it's the only performance, 2024 race was the only performance where he got won over 5 points and past 10 points. This was his best performance. He carried every count. This is all the counties he carried in his whole political career, basically. It's looking like Florida to me, as we can expectationally see. What were we predicting in regards to Florida? Well, going all the way down, you can clearly see we were predicting that Florida, we were not so sure about Miami-Dade. We really looked at how much Hispanics that Debbie McCarcel-Polwell could pull. Get it? Polwell, I'm not a funny comedian, but, yeah, it was close. Scott was winning most polls, but the aggregate was saying 4.9. And everyone is saying, oh, you got to expect McCarcel-Polwell to carry in more Hispanic voters. Did she? Well, she didn't do so well because polls had indicated that that wasn't going to be the case, actually. And the later, when we began to close into the election. But yeah, this is what we were saying it would look like. What were we wrong about? We were wrong about 2 counties. We were wrong about Miami-Dade. We were wrong about Osceola counties because we believe those counties would be carried by McCarcel-Polwell, mainly because of the Hispanic vote. Hispanics have a tendency to go and vote for someone who they can relate to. And if they happen to be also Hispanic, that's a good possibility. We were talking about, of course, I'm trying to think, blanking on his name, Colin Allred, and how much Hispanic votes he brought in and could bring in Texas. Everyone was expecting that Powell would be taking a lot of Hispanic votes. Was that the case? No, not really. So the identity politics is big in the Hispanic voters, and it's usually that case with minority voters because it's more about how you relate to the said candidate. Looking here, let's see. We got Scott, and then we got Marquesal Powell. There we go. So yeah, you'll see clearly. This is what we were predicting. We were wrong about Miami-Dade. That went to Scott. Or Osceola County went to Scott also. So we were wrong about 2 counties. And our average said 51% for Scott, 48% for Marquesal Powell. And Election Time News says you have Duval County red in Miami-Dade blue. Well, it's true. Well, yeah. Here's the deal. It's not really the midterms. My theory about that though is, realistically, yes, Duval County is more liberal than Miami-Dade. Absolutely, and it makes sense. Duval County is the most populated county in the state. It has the biggest city, and it's ranked the 9th biggest city in the whole country. Yeah, why Duval County expectationally would be realistically more blue, but then again, Miami-Dade. Got to keep in mind, Miami-Dade, although it made huge trends to the right in the last 4 years, we need to keep in mind, okay, maybe this was just a Republican trend or the red wave or a temporary red wave in 2022, and maybe Florida. I didn't think Florida was going to go back to it normal, but it would not be solid for Republicans. And maybe Miami-Dade would swing back to being more moderate. And of course, with that Hispanic Ecuadorian vote, which is popular in Miami-Dade, you know what? I thought identity politics would really shape Miami-Dade to be a very compatible county. I was predicted that Debbie Marquesal Powell would win the county by less than a point. Was I right about that? No, I wasn't. Instead, you'll see Miami-Dade clearly is a Republican county. It's 54, 10 points to the right. It is a Republican county. It's probably the biggest county that the Republicans have. But anyway, what do you guys think in regards to our video? Let me know down below. And as always, I'll see you all in the next political episode.